All right. I'm gonna try to lead in with this with as much grace as possible. So as everybody knows, and it was kind of funny because I was watching the interview, and I could send the interview to everybody today, but I guess I'm kind of torn about this approach. And after I get done like introducing this, because you're the only one that has representation that showed up on time, but this is not an indictment on you, dear beloved Logan. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this first before we like everybody else kind of digs into it. So there was an episode of this podcast called All the Smoke. All the Smoke is a podcast with NBA champion Steven Jackson. For those that do not know, Steven Jackson was really, really close friends, pretty much called George Floyd like his twin brother and everything like that. And Matt Barnes both played in the NBA and everything like that. Today, an interview was released of Jeremy Lin. And for those that do not know, Jeremy Lin's my favorite basketball player. Why? Because that was the greatest time to be a Knicks fan. Everybody else had Michael Jordan and LeBron James. I had Jeremy Lin. You know what I'm saying? It's like when how do I put this politely? It's kind of like when black people are like, well, where's our, well, not black, when I heard somebody say this on Twitter, it was ridiculous. And the Dominican me and laughed, but the Dominican and me laughed and cried at the same time. But it's like, well, where's our Hispanic superhero? It's like, y'all got Spy Kids. For me, I got Jeremy Lin. That's besides the point. But one of the things he said was it was an incident where he was playing in the G League. He played in the G League this year. And somebody on the court called him, and he's an Asian American man. He's Taiwanese. So if I'm not mistaken, does that mean he's Chinese? I'm looking at Logan. Is that yes, wrong? Yes, it is. Okay, cool. You're right. I'm right. I'm looking for you for confirmation. That's cool. But anyway, someone called him coronavirus on the basketball court. Instead of calling dude out, he did make it known that the incident did happen, but instead of calling him out on it, he decided to sit this brother down because, it's the NBA. So it's, well, unless somebody is non-binary. I'm still learning and stuff like that. But he decided to sit this player down in the G League to let him know like how that's not okay. His reasonings were he didn't want to demonize him because of what would have happened. Basically saying like, because he knows the stigma of the model minority myth, he knows that anti-blackness would have immediately jumped on him. That's just his thoughts. I guess like in one, I would like to hear your thoughts on this, brother Logan. How do you feel about that? I don't know if this is the first time you heard about this, but he did talk about it in an interview today. It just dropped. And if you want after here, I can send it to you. But what are your thoughts after hearing about this?
So, yeah. I didn't know about this previously, but like his response seems really patient and kind of like he took a moment to collect himself, which is probably what I would do as well. Because he has a really good point where if he kind of escalated this, then anti-blackness would probably is already starting right now, but like it would just explode. And we don't need that right now. We don't need that anytime, actually. But I think his approach was a lot more mature and like sitting him down and telling him why it's not okay is a really effective way to change like that person's mind, like as an individual. But then like, I don't know I just think if he escalated it, it wouldn't have ended well. Like everyone would just go home kind of not feeling great.
Now, when I say just to make sure I was clear with the introduction. So when I say like he didn't call him out, meaning like he did not identify this guy, pretty much. He refuses to identify him, period. He didn't even necessarily want to bring it up to like the officials during the game in which this was happening. That basically was his reasonings behind it. And I guess like because like I said, it's technically you can call it a slur in a sense. The way that the pandemic has been used to weaponize against your community. How do you feel about that? I don't know if I said that before, but yeah, he just refuses to identify him. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Like, I think it's his personal choice. I don't know if I would do the same if I was him. But then again, if you do identify him, it's gonna send like wave after wave of people to like, you know, attack him. So like I respect his decision. But yeah, I'm just not sure if I would make the same choice.
Gotcha. And basically what Jeremy Lin said, he said that after talking to the guy said to this sentiment, you know, I've been in a bubble literally because, you know, during this pandemic, we're trying to keep athletes and everything safe. He's like, I don't necessarily know what's happening in the world. Like Jeremy apparently had to show him people are being brutalized, old people are being brutalized, you know, like people within your community are literally being targeted simply because, you know, and I'm not going to say his name. If you feel like saying 45's name, that's completely up to you. But, you know, 45 used the pandemic to weapon and put a target, like a red dot on you guys' back. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. I think for me, as far as not naming him, I don't know. And like I said, I just got done watching this episode maybe like an hour ago. So I'm still kind of like processing just that. But I thought that was interesting to kind of just pull out and bring to the forefront of this conversation. Because like I said, I feel like that we can learn from one another. And, you know, I'm not going to speak for all of the Black community, just like you don't speak for all of the, you know, East Asian community. Okay, cool. So yeah. Also, Brother James has joined us on screen. James in the building from Alaska, literally the only nigga I know that lives in Alaska. How you doing today, brother? And you're on the opposite side of your ring light for some odd reason.
I like the aesthetic. It's cool.
Alrighty then. But yeah, you heard everything we just talked about. But so yeah, if you wanted to jump in on this, what are your thoughts on this? I guess like this topic in general, like now that's been brought, this nugget that's been brought to the forefront.
I actually missed a good chunk of it, so because my internet was being funky, so I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so for everybody else, and that should help catch them up. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
Go ahead, Kiana.
Are you sure you can go first? Okay. I would have probably told who it was, because how is that individual going to be held accountable? I feel like we have to be able to hold the problematic individuals in our communities accountable, because I feel like, yeah, it was nice that he didn't want anti-Blackness to be perpetuated, but at the same time, it's like we shouldn't be making excuses for people, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I feel that too. I think like for me, it's like, and just like what I just did with Logan like a couple of moments ago. Didn't know if that was a sore, and whether I knew it or not, I always tell people intent doesn't negate the effect it has on people. You know what I'm saying? I think that's really important. A lot of people like to say, well, it wasn't my intention. Like, you know, we don't get to say, we might, you know, have the mindset, oh, it could have been a joke. But that could have been really that could have been potentially damaging for my brother on screen, you know what I'm saying? But I just wanted to acknowledge that, because like I said, public proclamations, I always say, if your offense is loud, your apology needs to be twice or equally matched, you know what I'm saying? And that's his route, I guess, as the one that is afflicted. I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of torn, but yeah, I'm kind of there with you, but I guess it's like dealer's choice when it comes to this. I don't know. It's weird. And what y'all got for me? Come on.
Yeah. So Casper, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Jeremy Lin is a Christian, right?
Yeah. Yes, he is indeed a man of God. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I can kind of get it to where it's like you don't because you never know what can happen to this individual. It could be to where he gets death threats or someone really harms him or something like that, because of what he said. So it's hard, you know. I think I would have identified him too, because it's like he said, you want to hold those who say stuff like that or do things that harm others accountable. But at the same time, I get where Jeremy Lin came from, because there is still a lot of tension between the Asian American community, Black American community. So I get it. That's tough. I mean, I think Jeremy Lin kind of did what was right for him. Of course, we all go about things differently. So I can't say that Jeremy Lin was necessarily like wrong for not pointing out the individual, but at the same time, it's like, for me, I would have did that. Personally, I would have definitely been like, yo, it's him. I think we do need. It's like the white dude who was pepper spraying the protesters. Like, I was like, oh, we need to identify this dude and get him locked up for assault, like, for sure. So yeah, that's kind of tough right there.
Wait, I have a question then. So in this, Jeremy Lin had a conversation with a Black basketball player. Was he saying like anti-Asian sentiments or something?
He said he called him coronavirus, essentially. And with Jeremy Lin being a Taiwanese man, being that he's Chinese, correct, Logan? So yeah, damaging. It's super bad. But yeah, that's basically the sentiment.
I see. Okay, then I think if it was me, I probably would have not called this person out in public then. I don't really, I believe in accountability, but I think also the internet mob's not a really good place a lot of times for accountability, unless they're doing something like assault or something like that, abusing someone. Then I think that's appropriate. But, when people say, I don't know about anyone else, but, people have said things that I found problematic. Who aren't famous. They're not famous people, of course, but I, just had conversations with them. I think that's usually more helpful. A lot of times when people say ignorance, and I think sometimes we can all be like, come on, you should know what's going on, especially anyone who's like in activist circles. But the rest of the world really doesn't operate that way a lot of times. And some people say, well, you're just letting people do what they want. But I really believe in this, kind of just calling people in to whatever the conversation is, not necessarily always calling them out, which I know is a super cheesy, Christian line.
No. Hear me out. I never thought about it like that. You said calling people in, not calling people out. You know what I'm saying? I've never heard anybody put it like that. That's interesting that you put it like that.
Yeah, I just think that's a way to work. And then sometimes you need to call people out, if he was going around and found out he was hurting Asian people or using his power to really impact an individual's life or a group, kick him to the curb. I don't have a lot of patience with that. So it just depends situation.
Gotcha. What y'all got for me? Like I said, this is a very, it's tricky. It's touchy, but I think conversations like this are important. You know what I'm saying? You can come in with a different opinion and we might all learn something from other people. You know what I'm saying? I never heard anybody put it the way James just put it. And so, like I said, whatever y'all got, bring it to the table. Bring it to the table.
Go ahead, Jess.
Just to touch on what James said, the fact that yellow apparel has been happening for years in this country, and that Asian people have been considered a virus numerous times throughout our history, and it's happening again with coronavirus, I feel like that calling that man that is damaging. And it's I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a slur, but it's still can be very damaging to the Asian community. That perpetuating that narrative, whether it's saying it to one person or saying it on the internet, I think it's very damaging to the community.
Gotcha. And I don't think anybody can be wrong in this situation. Like I said, I think it's dealer's choice. I mean, I don't know if y'all have watched this one episode I did on my podcast where I pretty much spoke of when my pastor of my old church verbally accosted me. It took me months to talk about it and everything like that. once again, public proclamations deserve public criticism. It did take me some time, though. I don't think that it's kind of weird. It's like one of the things I always tell people, like, I don't think we can label how dignified somebody shakes shackles off of them and call them wrong, because it's like, you got to remember that they're bleeding. We can't really tell the cut how to bleed. So once again, I think this is definitely like dealer's choice when it comes to this. So I don't think there's necessarily a right and wrong answer necessarily. I don't know. Like I said, this is weird, but once again, this is important stuff that we should definitely consider. X, you had something before Jess went?
Yeah, sorry, I had to mute something. So
Are you all right? Was that a cramp?
What? No. At first I thought it was more what the first two people said, where it was like, I don't think I would have done the same thing and not said their name. But after what gentleman just said, it's just like, it really does depend on the situation. If it's a one-on-one type of thing and that person is like, you know what, let me take an opportunity to plant a seed, if you will. I feel like that is very commendable. I think it depends on the severity. So it's like, in this scenario, I guess it's one of those things where it's just like, it was an isolated incident. This person seemed to be open to that kind of like criticism and, broadening their horizons a little bit. Were the situation different, or were the type of person different? And they still just did the same thing. I would be definitely in the park of, no, they should definitely call them out. But in this scenario, I think I respect it. I absolutely respect it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's good. And I think like and like as Tyler said, so Jeremy Lin is a Christian. And one of the things that like the Bible says is like, if one of your like brothers is in error and you try to go to your brother and they don't seem to want to seek correction or won't receive it, then you bring other people. You know what I'm saying? So I think like the fact that he like tried that option and it seemed to have worked, I think like now that I'm hearing kind of all this, I think what it would have been good, not so much that so something would happen to this man, but I think like maybe even like, I don't know, like maybe if both of them went public about the situation and then like talked about like how fruitful the conversation was, how you could have learned from one another. But once again, dealer's choice. I don't know. I just think that like when it comes to this, and I relate to this to just being like, as a Black person in this country, I don't want you, because you know that you are so forgiving, that it comes off as you're not willing to hold people accountable. But from what he says, I mean, like, it sounds like everything went well, but I don't know. I mean, like me personally, like, just like I just did, where I felt like I was in error, I went public with it just because I feel like that could be a teachable moment, two different perspectives, two different people coming to the same road and a conclusion as a solution. You know what I'm saying? I think that would have been beneficial, but I don't know. Not everything needs to be a curriculum, at the end of the day, but yeah.
Can I share a personal story that I'm not super proud of?
Go ahead.
When I was, I'm like 33 now, but when I was younger, like 17, 16, listened to a lot of terrible rap music, to be quite frank.
Say that. Hold on real quick. Say that again.
16, 17.
How old are you, sir?
32. I know. Black don't crack. It's true.
You really don't.
But I also shave a lot. I shave every day because my beard doesn't grow the way I want it to. But like I started getting like activism at like 18, whatever. And I look back and I'm like, man, I had such problematic views of women, and like it was like these cool older women I met who were like college age kids. So I guess to me they felt a lot older, who just kind of like taught me about all these like kind of like problematic views or things I would say, because I just came from that type of background, quite frankly, where I came from a family that just really didn't respect women, I think, the way they should have. And then my friend circle and just kind of growing up in that sort of, not to make excuses, just that hood environment itself has a lot of that in a lot of poor neighborhoods, to be quite frank. And like I learned so much from it. So to me, that was really helpful. Because then I got to grow out of that, and then I got to teach other men that as well, and so, and other women as well. I mean, the problems within a lot of communities is sometimes both genders there. So that's been an impact I've had because people have sort of just talked to me and told me like, hey man, like that's not cool to say, and let me tell you why. Let me tell you why this hurts people. And I was like, oh shit, okay, I learned. It was good.
Gotcha. Like I said, I think, and you know what, in a weird way, as you said that, and now I'm thinking about the times we're in, we're also in a social media era. So like a lot of everything, when I say this, like everything, it seems like what we do has to be public. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that might just be us being, and I'll speak more so for myself. Maybe even the reason why I'm thinking maybe I would have, if I was being petty, because sometimes I get petty and sometimes y'all piss me off. You know what I'm saying? I love Jesus, but you could still get the smacktivism. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of that is warped by the fact that we are in this internet gangster era period we're in time. I don't know. I mean, but that's interesting. I appreciate you sharing that, James, for sure.
Yeah. And I'll say this as well. I'm actually very proud of Jeremy Lin for taking the approach he took, because the thing is, like, with us so passionate about fighting against racism and all that stuff, and we're passionate about life. Like, that's why I would say Black Lives Matter. Like, and it's not just Black lives. We want to make sure that we're passionate about all lives. As I mean, not to say all lives matter or anything, but just to say that all lives do matter at the end of the day, and I think that sometimes you have to really have conversations with people and figure out why they're acting the way they're acting, because you never know. That guy that called Jeremy Lin the coronavirus, he could have been going through something personal in his life, and he felt the need to inflict the pain he was going through onto Jeremy Lin by saying that. And Jeremy Lin, being the humble man he is, said, I'm not just going to call this guy out, but I'm actually going to have a conversation with this guy. And through that, it got resolved. So I think that one of the things I did see, which kind of really impacted my life personally, was there was this guy, I forget his name. I think his name is Daryl or something. And he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was sharing how he, he's a Black man growing up in the South. I forgot exactly where he grew up, but he grew up right in the heart of where KKK is, and he was telling a story about how he ended up becoming friends with KKK members as a Black man. And he actually was introduced to the Grand Imperial Wizard of the KKK and had a conversation with him. And through him actually loving people despite the fact that they hated him for the color of his skin, he was able to actually help a lot of those KKK members denounce their racism and to see that what they believe was wrong in white supremacy. So I think that if we just leave people alone and say, oh, forget you because you're racist or whatever, I don't really think that's the right thing to do. I think that we need to really challenge people and say, hey, why are you racist? Why do you hate Black people? Why do you hate Asian people? Why do you hate Mexican people? Why this? Why that? I think we really need to challenge people on what they believe, because through that it's going to come true change. Because if we just leave racist people to just be racist, then that's not really solving the true problem of what's going on. So I think that we really need to, instead of combating hate with hate, we need to combat hate with love and say, hey, for any of us that are Christians, we know the Bible tells us to love our enemies, the same way that Jesus loved us enough to die for us on the cross, despite the fact that we were his enemies at one time. I think that he set the example that you got to love people who hate you, and through that love can come radical change. So that's not to say everybody's going to be changed, because of course not. That's not realistic. But just to say that if you can really like reach out to one person and show them the error of their ways and show them, hey, racism is wrong, you know, and all this stuff through love, through communication, through sitting down with people and having conversations, I think that will make a true impact within the culture, and that will like solve a lot of the problems that are going on. So I think that what Jeremy Lin did was a great example of just that, you know, instead of like, because Jeremy Lin could have cussed this dude out. Jeremy Lin could have did a lot of things, but instead he's like,
I would have been like, I'm pulling you by your baby hairs. What you talking about? Like,
yeah. But instead of doing that, Jeremy Lin was like, I actually want to talk to this guy and come to a resolution, which happened. So for me, I think we can all kind of look at Jeremy Lin as an example of him, instead of combating hate with hate, he actually loved this man and came to a resolution, and probably showed him like, dang, I'm tripping. You know, I was wrong for calling this man coronavirus. So yeah, I would say that's something that I kind of like even learned through this conversation that we're having now is that, you know, like hate combated with hate is not going to solve anything. But through loving, through like actually talking to people, having conversations, all this kind of stuff can bring true cultural change to this world that we all live in.
I just think like the only thing, and my only pushback from that is, though I love you, brother, and because I submit to the same thing you do, and this is why I go back to when I say sometimes people take advantage of that, if that makes sense. Like, for instance, like with me, and y'all know me, man, I'm MrLeadWithLove, dog, but sometimes people need to be talked to nasty for them to get like, you really can't treat people the way that you do. And different strokes for different folks, obviously. But I think it's, once again, it is dealer's choice. I'm a lot more disciplined than most people. Old me, I don't know if Mel's watching right now. We were just talking about this. Old me used to drop kick people down the stairs in my high school. Like, if you cross me the wrong way, like I mean, like I watched ECW, and I also liked Indiana Jones, and something about watching people resemble boulders as they roll down the stairs was funny before I found Jesus. But that's besides the point. But I don't know, man. It's just, I don't know. I think that it's like, it's one of those, like, that's why like this is an interesting conversation as far as like seeking the nuance with this. It's one of those, okay, cool, I can be the bigger person, but are you going to still try to attempt to step on me while I'm trying to be the bigger person? And that's why it goes back to it definitely goes back to the dealer's choice with that. Yeah, because it's not that what is the new gentleman who came in's name? I'm sorry. Oh, that's Brother James, the only black man I know in Alaska. What James said between, you know, what he initially said and then his story and then what Tyler is saying. It is not even a little bit that I have an issue with it, because it's actually the exact opposite. Like you said, kid, I had never thought of it that way, and hearing that is just like, you know, wow, interesting. Because to me, something like, you know, someone calls me an N-word, it's just like, you have one chance to walk away before it's the hands normally. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, stories like that. Let me find out you can. X, you just seem so reserved. Like, let me find out you can fight, dog. Like, you just... but it's one of those things where, like, it's really hard to tell who's gonna be receptive and who isn't. And it's like, there are some folks who do need to like lose all their opportunities. Like, let's put aside fighting for a second. There are some folks who need to lose all business opportunities, familiar relationships, any kind of social media presence, whatever, after they've said something ignorant, before they actually understand that that kind of behavior is not all right in society. But then there are also people who respond the way that, you know, this unnamed person did. And I think a lot of what this what this work is approaching people who say things that are, you know, that are not right, not knowing what type of person whoever's on the receiving end is. I think that's hard. Like a few other people said, depending on the scenario, I might have done the same thing. I might not have done the same thing. You know,
It's like you said, it's dealer's choice. I do try to be, fair, like realistically optimistic about this kind of thing, and hearing, what I've heard, I do respond to that positively. Like, I'm glad that went well. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, it's not that I wish that the conversation didn't go well so that, whoever it is got outed and whatever. Like, I do like that it went well. It's just that, how do I put this?
Can I say something?
You probably be able to.
I think what everybody's kind of getting at with this, it's like, changed words is one thing. We sometimes need to see changed behavior. Does that make sense? Especially when it comes to like sensitive times like this, it's like your word is one thing. I need to see your actions. But it seems like everything went well. But like I said, I thought that this would be, I don't know why I thought that this would be a fruitful conversation. And yeah, I think that was good. I think we covered a good job, y'all. Like, honestly, I like this part. This was probably like, as far as like topics we've talked about so far, this was probably the one of those that like I'm gonna walk away from and be like, wow, that was refreshing in a lot of ways. So I wanted to thank you guys.